Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
I'll tell you what, I'm extra curious today because our guest is SchaOn Blodgett, and he and I have some very similar backgrounds because he's coming on today and he's going to dive into holistic wellness and health and naturopathy, and that's totally what I'm curious about and what lights me up. So I'm super excited. Kelly, how about you?
Well, I might say like 3 words today because you guys are going to get going and you're going to start clicking and do. So I'm just going to add color in today's show. So SchaOn, welcome.
Hello.
And I'll just kick it off with, what are you curious about today? And then tell us people about yourself and just take a big deep breath and just let it flow.
Okay, so what am I curious about today? Like all the different possibilities that are out there. So I just recently started exploring ozone therapy, which I was sharing with you about.
Oh yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah. And then also just got a book. It's from Dr. Frank Schallenberg. He's really big into ozone therapy. And then basically it's Bursting with Energy. That's the book that I just started reading, and it's all about his journey into going from a medical doctor into holistic medicine, because he was finding in like the 1970s that he'd be prescribing things to his patients, and it was just kind of covering up symptoms that wasn't taking care of the disease and, wasn't fixing things. And then they'd have side effects and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, there has to be a better way. And so he started exploring and came into holistic medicine. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, so taking just a step back, why would someone like you be curious about ozone therapy?
So ozone therapy, so I was just recently introduced to this about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. And so one of my friends, she works for an ozone doctor, and the ozone doctor, she's a full MD. And so she also has her own private practice doing ozone therapy. And she's able to do ozone intravenously and some other ways and stuff like that. But some of the cool things about ozone, when done therapeutically, it can actually help to remodulate the immune system. So if you have a weakened immune system, it can help bring it back up to normal levels. If you have an autoimmune disorder, so your immune system's ramped up, it's going crazy, it can actually help bring it down. It helps to get rid of the bad viruses. Oh, slow down.
I love your role, and you and I talk on it all the time, but I kind of see you almost like starting to levitate a little bit because you're so excited.
Right. So yeah, it helps to remodulate the immune system, helps to get rid of bad viruses, bad bacteria, molds, fungus. Lots of people, like for example, in the Lyme community, have also been using this to help basically help their system get better. And also, yeah, so there's all of that kind of stuff. It also helps with reducing inflammation really quickly in the body.
Brian, what do you know about ozone therapy? I'm gonna do a mashup of my guys in the middle right now because, yeah.
I will say it's definitely a very interesting modality and not one that I know a huge amount of, but I will say that anything that's going to help reduce inflammation is a great place to be.
Yeah.
Inflammation is the number one cause of any disease, any problem in the body. And so if you have a way to stop that or at least make it less, that's a great place to be. So I'm intrigued. I'm definitely going to be doing some research after this. But SchaOn, truly, this show's about people first. We don't like to be lost in people's, if they're like a doctor or if they're a best-selling author, that stuff's cool. But we want to know more about you, and we'd love to know like, how did you ever even get on this path? What was your curious nature as a kid that set you up to be who you are
Because
today?
I've never met anyone more curious than you.
Right.
And like your picture is like in the dictionary of like curiosity. It's like SchaOn Blodgett.
So when I was about probably 8 or 10 years old, somewhere around there, I had a dream one night of putting colored lights on people's skin. And so I woke up that day and found this laser light and started running it over my skin and just kind of seeing what it did. And I noticed like I could feel like this interesting tingling and like there's just this really interesting effect. And so I was like, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what that could do. And then I got distracted by something else. And, and then when I was about, I think, 24, I was working for Stonehenge Rocks and Rituals in Uptown. I was helping to manage that business, was brought in as a business consultant. And while I was there, this lady, her name is Cornelia Alcesar, she had just moved here from Germany. And she wanted to teach a class in our upstairs teaching space on esoteric holistic medicine and color puncture. And when she started telling me about this, I remembered that dream that I had as a little kid. I'm like, oh my God, this is actually a thing. This is kind of cool. And I had been doing energy work before this and Reiki and other forms of energy healing and stuff like that. And I'd been looking for something beyond that, something to where there was like something tangible that the clients could see that something actually changed. Like, for example, you can sit there and do all the energy work you want. The person's laying there, sitting there, and then they're like, yeah, that felt kind of cool, but it could have just been that I was just, laying here relaxing. And so in the esoteric holistic medicine and color puncture system, they have what's called Kirlian energy emission analysis. And so...
Okay, what's that?
Yep. So that is... So Kirlian is a high-density static electrical discharge plate that excites the biophotons on the skin. We're always giving off biophotons. And so it supercharges those biophotons, so we're able to photograph that with a normal camera. And so originally we used photographic paper. Now I actually use digital in my office. And with how those emissions come off, in different patterns, in different ways, in different areas on the fingertips or in the toes, that tells us different information. And so you take the initial photo and you see what's going on with the person, and then you try basically a test therapy. See if...
And when you're saying photos, it's basically like they're taking their feet and they're like pushing them on a white piece of paper.
Well, not pushing, just laying it on there.
Okay.
And then you push a button and it goes zzz, because it's static electricity.
And it's a snapshot of what the prints look like.
Yep.
Got it.
And not necessarily like the prints, but like it's photographing the biophotons that are coming off.
I'm trying to figure out, because I can't visually say it on air. I'm trying to give everybody the picture for it.
So, basically, the easiest way I would say is for somebody just to go online and look up Kirlian photography. There's some really cool pictures there. And so, okay, rewinding back a little bit. So we take the photo and then figure out a test therapy to do on somebody and see if how that influences the system. And then we take another Kirlian photograph to see what is different. And more importantly, what isn't different, what stayed the same. Because what stayed the same in the photo, that's what is of importance, because that's stuck. It's not moving, it's not changing. And things that don't change die. And so then we do a specific therapy on whatever isn't shifting, whatever isn't changing, whatever isn't being dynamic.
Okay, Brian, go, because I know we both have like 10 different questions we could ask SchaOn right now.
Well, I just love that it's such a small world, SchaOn, because as I was looking at your website and I saw Kirlian photography, the first thing that I thought was, oh my gosh, I have to connect SchaOn with one of my best friends, Cornelia.
You know
But
Cornelia?
But of course,
Oh,
you
very
guys
cool.
are already best friends. So
Yeah.
that was number one. So I just love that that we are connected in the world already. So
Yeah,
that's
her
very
office
cool.
is actually right down, like a block away from my office.
So get this, I have been in her office and I've done the footprints. I've done the whole thing.
Very nice. Awesome.
So rock and roll. So I love that. And as I'm looking through everything that you offer, what I get totally is that you really are taking a holistic approach to health.
Right.
And for our audience, could you describe just in a general sense what holistic health is? And then I'd love for our audience to hear about what that really means to you and how you do it specifically.
Yes, that's juicy.
Yeah. So how I look at holistic, it's everything. And so for me, how I do that, so after starting to learn color puncture, then after that I started learning complex homeopathy because I noticed with my clients they needed something in between each session. And then after that, I started noticing that their diet and nutrition was just crap. And so I was like, okay, how can I resolve this? And so then I started studying Ayurvedic medicine, which Carrie Mangus, she's the one that introduced me to that. And just kept, studying more and more things over the years to help people in different aspects of their health and well-being. And so holistic is not just what's going on physically, like if you have a physical pain or a physical disease or a physical discomfort, but it's also mental emotional health and well-being as well, because that's going to reflect into the physical well-being, because our mental emotional state, that's going to cause different chemicals and hormones to be released into the body to put it into a state of being. So if you have a really hard time receiving love, over the years, those chemicals and hormones are going to be adjusting things in like the chest area, in the mammary gland area. And over time, it's very possible that a person could start developing breast lumps or breast cancer, stuff like that. And so their mental and emotional health and well-being is important. And then beyond that, once people start to be working on their particular issues that they've got going on, then they start opening up spiritually. And, what else is there? Because if I'm shining this light on myself and I am feeling better, or I put these crystals on me and I start sleeping better, is there more out there than what I've been told before? And so then looking at different spiritual approaches, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Kabbalism, Hermetic stuff. So I think holistic is everything.
Absolutely true. And have you discovered, because you are dancing in all these different modalities and have knowledge in so many areas, have you developed your own methodology? Like, have you seen, okay, if you do these 3 to 5 things, like, or would you say it's so unique to every person? Or have you found that there are certain things that really are across the board?
So there are some things that can be generally good for most people. But like, what I would say, like, because right now a lot of people have been losing their hair, that I've been talking with and stuff like that, either after having COVID or having the vaccine, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so for one person, what helped their system start thickening their hair back up was L-arginine. Another person, it was actually folic acid. So it's
Can we just take a quick pause right there, SchaOn?
Yeah.
We are about to move.
We're just having some little, hey, we've only
Now-
done a
now we're
couple
good,
shows.
right?
Now we're good. One more
So
time.
what I was
Hold on, you gotta mute. There we
what
go.
I was going to say here,
Okay, we're back.
SchaOn, is that you brought up L-arginine.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand as we move into the next section, I would love for you to talk more about how that is actually really good for repairing the gut. And so people they hear L-arginine and they go, oh, well, SchaOn just said it's good for my hair. But we really want to talk about why that's impacting the hair, because that's not a hair supplement. It's actually working within the body at a deep, profound level in the gut, which is the second brain, which is then giving your body what it needs to actually repair and heal whatever was causing the hair loss.
Right.
Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, and I would say that it has more to do probably with circulation and stuff like that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's all
Rock and
good.
roll. Well, we wanted to just tee that up, and we'll be back with segment 2 with SchaOn. Thank you so much for being here. We are Kelly and Brian, being curious, progressive voice of Minnesota, AM 950. And we are back.
Woo woo!
Being curious with Kelly and Brian. We are here with SchaOn. And we dove in to starting to kind of unwrap this whole idea of holistic health and some of the modalities and practices that you are actually practicing. And we'd love to, again, dive a little deeper on how long have you been practicing certain things that you're just getting really phenomenal results with. And then I know you've got this new ozone therapy that you're bringing into the mix. So maybe take us back to what are the things you've seen work really best throughout your career, and then some of the new modalities or therapies that you're bringing in now.
Okay. So my primary modality that I specialize in is the esoteric holistic medicine and color puncture. I mean, that I would say is like...
Explain that to the audience that has no idea.
Yep.
Like, because the color, I think that's really easy. But
Yeah, so esoteric holistic medicine is a form of naturopathy, and color puncture is just one small aspect of esoteric medicine. And so what color puncture is, it's putting specific frequencies of light on the different acupuncture points, reflexology zones, meridians, to give new correcting information into the point, into the meridian, stuff like that. It's almost like this is the base programming language for the body and for the cells, communicating via light. And so that particular modality I've been doing now for 13, almost 14 years, I think. And I do yearly update trainings to find out what's the new insights that they have for this year. And I would say that's mostly what I do in my practice. Right now, because saying that I am really excited about ozone therapy, like pretty much every single client that I'm working with, that's pretty much the very first therapy that I do on them. Just because there are so many amazing benefits with ozone, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how all of this works. It's almost kind of like an independent study. And I'm, talking with
try this. Try that.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And you're doing a lot on yourself, by the way. So this isn't, you're not doing anything that to yourself that you would, I'm sorry, I'm about to say
not
that
doing
wrong.
anything,
there we go,
on
thank
other
you.
people that I haven't done on myself.
And I felt that was really important, that you've been extremely, I don't want to just go back to the curiosity, but you're really living and exploring and digging and questioning and experiencing before you even think about bringing it to a patient.
Right, exactly. And so another modality that I just recently brought in about a year ago is brain spotting. So it's very similar to EMDR, except instead of going back and forth in the visual field, you're focusing on a relevant eye position. And in brain spotting, the thought is where you look affects how you feel. And it's a really nice nonverbal way of reprocessing trauma, helping to overcome blockages and goals, helping to get to the next level, also helping to reduce stress, or the feeling of overwhelmed or exhaustion, stuff like that. And so,
And what's is it like EDMR and brain spotting? Is it kind of like a Coke and Pepsi, or is it just different? Do they handle different issues or a different technique, or does it just resonate with somebody different?
so EMDR is the precursor to brain spotting. Brain spotting was actually developed by one of the trainers that did EMDR trainings. And so what that particular person found is that if you stopped on a particular point, you could actually go much deeper, but it wasn't as reactive for the patient or client. So it was much more gentle.
Okay.
So,
More
So when it
gentle.
comes
Okay.
to again, this holistic approach that you're taking, how impactful would you say? I see that you do or have done a lot of work with Reiki and some body work stuff. How important is that to you, and how do you see that that's a really maybe not critical piece, but something that can be very beneficial for people to have access to?
So I used to love doing Reiki and energy work and pure form energy work in the late 90s, early 2000s. Once I started learning color puncture, I started moving more away from the energy healing modalities. And now I do incorporate them every once in a while. So I probably only do, on a client, I might do Reiki like once or twice a month through all of my clients in my practice. And I do like way more than just Reiki. I mean, there's a lot more, but it's just a lot easier to explain that it's, energy work, Reiki. And so, like, I feel that you're able, or I like to work with the color puncture stuff mostly just because you're able to have more control over the reactions and
So,
how
SchaOn,
deep the person goes.
Can I jump in quickly? So, with the color puncture, are you using that to identify issues, problem areas, or are you actually performing healing in that process?
So the Kirlian energy emission analysis helps us to analyze to figure out what therapies would be a little bit better for one person over another. So
you use that as your diagnostic.
well, as our analysis,
Analysis,
we
okay.
don't diagnose in natural medicine.
Sorry, thank you. So it's your snapshot.
Yep. So it's our snapshot, and it helps to guide us. I also use the Zytogalvanic skin response testing system. The
Okay,
balance.
what's that?
So galvanic skin response, it asks different questions of the system, and it helps to kind of give you an insight onto that person's wellness profile. And so with that, it can help you to kind of narrow down what might be a little bit better for that person on that particular day. Like, for example, if the person's suffering from hair loss issues, would L-arginine be a little bit better, or would folic acid be a little bit better in that particular case? And so it just
So
helps.
what is that process? Is it a blood draw? Is it
Nope.
a scratch of the skin? Is it under the fingernails? Like,
Nope,
what is that?
Basically, you put your hand on a metal plate, and then it just asks different questions. So it's through like some type of galvanic skin response.
Okay.
So for those people who, hear the word color puncture and they're just totally lost, and without making any diagnostic or statements that I know you probably don't want to say, when someone does that process, is there a color or a pattern that would be associated with like diabetes or cancer? Like, can you see things like that?
So what I would see is, like, for example, if somebody had, let's say, diabetes, some things that I would expect to likely see is probably a thickening of the corona discharge and the Kirlian in the areas of the liver, the spleen, and the pancreas. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have diabetes, but that would, if somebody had that and they also had diabetes, I wouldn't be surprised. And So that would be like one example. If they had cancer, cancer is actually very complex, and it can be anywhere in the body. But one of the big things that I would expect to see with somebody that has cancer is these type of emissions that we call conflict emissions. And so, because from a holistic health standpoint, we view cancer as being the physical manifestation of conflict in the body. And so we would expect to see really strong conflict signs. And there's a
Well,
lot of different ways to see those.
and I love that you're saying it that way. And in another kind of a little bit more technical way to say that is that your cancer is a result of your cell's inability to tell the next cell that it's sick.
Right.
And then that breakdown continues to happen, and then you have a tumor and all the really bad stuff that happens. But I love that that's actually a really good way to describe it, because you're bringing the spiritual side to it, and I think that people can tap into that and understand it, because it's a direct correlation to what is actually happening, which is a breakdown of communication between our cells.
Right.
And
Well,
so,
and then there's also cell signaling that isn't happening correctly, like the immune system isn't functioning correctly in cancer. So the immune system isn't destroying the particular disrupted cells, stuff like that. So,
exactly. And so let's say, someone comes in, they do color puncture with you, you're starting to see some of these, maybe like a red flag, like, okay, there's some issues here in the liver, which could be, diabetes, could be a number of things. What's the next step after that you're taking with your client or your patient after you do that kind of analysis?
So what I found in my practice that seems to work really well, because most of my clients I see every other week, or some of them only once a month. People that have like cancer, Lyme disease, lupus, stuff like that, generally I like to see them at least once a week. But most of my clients I see for a full appointment every other week. And so we do the therapies in there. And then what I do is I give them some things to do in between appointments. So that could be either some supplements, minerals, nutritionals, enzymes, the whole 9 yards. It could also be like dream therapies for them to do. It could be meditations. It could be some Ayurvedic daily routine type stuff like Abhyanga. Or it might be dry brushing or oil pulling. And so that's stuff that they do on themselves every single day in between appointments. And it's kind of for them to start learning what's correct for their system personally. So like for some people, lettuce salads are fantastic. But for other people, that's actually going to aggravate things for them. Like, for example, somebody that has anxiety. Normally, lettuce salads are not going to be a good thing for them because it's very light and very airy. Anxiety is, in Ayurvedic medicine, vata. And so a lettuce salad is going to increase that vata. It's going to increase their anxiety. And eventually we'd start seeing things like nerve pain, muscle twitches. And so instead, for those particular people, macaroni and cheese is actually really good for them because it's very grounding. It's very nurturing. It's very wholesome.
Oh my gosh, macaroni. Can I record that you just said macaroni and cheese is very good for you?
Yeah, I think that was recorded,
I know.
actually.
I'm just kidding.
I think my dad just had a heart attack.
I think your
but
dad
we'll
just had a
move
heart
on.
attack.
Yeah. So I'm just saying for some people, though, not
No,
for everybody.
I'm just giving you a hard
You
time.
know, somebody that is, let's say, in the obese category and has high cholesterol, macaroni and cheese might not be the best thing for them. They might need to, have maybe like a baked potato.
Well,
Okay.
and there's balance, Sean. I mean,
Right.
we're having a fun time here.
Oh, yeah.
There's I think there's there can be an analysis by paralysis where people go, "Oh, I have to be perfect. I have to eat only the best foods. I have to take all the best supplements." And the truth is that a healthy body can handle, an ice cream sundae maybe a couple times a year or
Right.
things like that. And actually, the act of
You just said couple
enjoying
times a
something.
year. I'm sorry.
Well, again, it's like, how many times a year do you need ice cream?
That's true.
Truthfully,
None.
None.
Okay.
Well,
But-
maybe if
but
you're like
for
down
your
in
own
Phoenix
happiness-
and it's 135, ice cream wouldn't be horrible on that day.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's all about balance, and what I'm hearing from you is that there are things that work, and it's totally individual
Right.
to each client and patient to say, to your point about the, salads, it's like, well, if they're more prone to anxiety, they're more prone to these types of energetics, that food group simply is not serving them. Whereas something that is more, I would probably use the, wheat or barley or, one of those foods that
Right.
really has also a good nutritional, function to it. So moving into our last segment here with you, SchaOn, what would you say is the best way for people to find you, get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is just to go to my website. That's Psinergy health.com. So that's P as in Paul, Sinergy health.com. Otherwise, you can just search by my name, and it's SchaOn. I'll probably be the only person that comes up.
I was about to say
That is an awesome way to spell SchaOn.
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Okay.
Well, we will be back, and we're going to dive into our third segment with SchaOn and all of the brilliance that he's bringing into the world of holistic health and nutrition. This is Brian and Kelly. We are always curious on the Being and Curious show, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. See you soon. Welcome back to Being Curious. This is Kelly and Brian. We are here with SchaOn. And SchaOn, we were actually talking on the break, and we want to kind of bring this to the ears of our audience. We were talking about how important it is for you to create even small wins for your clients and for your patients. So talk us through what that looks like and how it really is a massive piece to the work that you do is actually getting to know the people that you're in service to, right, and understanding what's important to them and what are those foods or habits or supplements that they can start to have even small wins with so that they can eventually get to where they want to go.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've definitely realized in my years of practice is that people aren't going to do everything perfectly. And you have to kind of figure...
Yes, we are. Every single time.
And so you kind of have to figure out what is a client actually going to do. So like one of my clients needed to work on re-regulating the endocannabinoid system, which provides homeostasis for the entire system or for the entire body. And so hops came up for this particular client. Now, this client does not like to take supplements. And I mean, they'll make some food changes and stuff like that, but I know that this client loves to drink beer. So I was like, hey, client, how about get some really hoppy beer and have some really hoppy beer for a couple days? And he was like, I can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah. And so...
Now, just to be clear, we are not telling people to go out and get 7 beers, no matter how hoppy they are. Don't take this too far, audience. SchaOn did not say 7. He said 1.
I was thinking case.
Sorry,
Okay, keep going. Thanks.
Yeah. And then, another time the person, I forgot exactly what it was.
Well, how did Hoppy Beer Guy feel afterwards?
Oh, he felt great.
Okay.
So, and it was something that he could fit into his lifestyle.
Right.
And now also he knows when I start feeling like this, it might mean I need a hoppy beer. So, so after probably like about 2, maybe 3 months of a client working with me, they start noticing these different signals within themselves. Like, I'm kind of craving fish. Maybe it's because my omega oils are off. Or I'm kind of craving arugula. And it's because, they start listening to what their body actually needs.
Well, it's like when you're pregnant. I know neither of you have been pregnant, but with both my children, I couldn't get enough blueberries. I do not like blueberries. I do not eat blueberries, but I needed blueberries with everything. And I just went with it because I knew my body was craving blueberries for one. Why would someone be craving blueberries?
So many different reasons.
Okay, that's cool. They're amazing, but...
Yeah, so if you have a red chin, blueberries are great.
Okay.
Or it's also good for kidney health as well.
Okay.
Blueberries actually are a little bit better than cranberries for kidneys.
Okay, sweet. See, there we go. Who knew?
So.
Mr. Brian.
So,
How
speaking of the kind of wins and those kind of fun ways that you're able to create those, what does it look like for someone to work with you? You mentioned ideally you work with someone once a week. Oftentimes it's twice a month.
Yep.
Do you find
well, most of the time it's actually every other week. Only if they have like a
Twice a month.
severe health issue like cancer or lupus, then I'd like to see them once a week.
And so what does that look like? Are people working with you their whole lifetime? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year? Do you have any kind of data on that?
I would say probably most of my clients I'm working on just stress management type stuff. So a good number of my clients, I would say probably about 50, 60% of them are like CEOs, lawyers, attorneys, salespeople that are in really high stressful jobs. And so they don't want to have to really think of how to reduce the stress in their life, but they want to still feel young and vibrant. And
how do you manage it? So how do you have a little bit of balance? Because it is very stressful, a lot of the jobs that you just mentioned, that those are high-stress jobs. Mm-hmm. So help us, because I know there's a lot of very stressed people in the Edge community, the AM 950 community. What are some of the tips and tricks that you share with these clients that are come to you that are just super high stress?
With most of those clients, it's I'll do a couple therapies that help to reduce the stress. It helps to put signals into the system to release that stress. And then at the end of the appointment, then I'll make like 1 or 2 suggestions for them to do in between appointments. For the clients that are okay taking different supplements and stuff like that, I might recommend a supplement or 2, depending on what their health needs are. And it could be like a complex homeopathic remedy. It could be herbs, vitamins, minerals. It could be different food choices. It could be hoppy beer. So basically just kind of whatever the client's likely going to do. And then every once in a while with those particular clients, then what we do is we'll go into what's called a background therapy. What's some of the background trauma that is making it your system prone to not let go of stress? Why do you
maybe be addicted to stress?
Right, or be addicted to stress. Okay. And so that's like about every other appointment or every 3 appointments that we'll do a background therapy. Because I don't want to do a lot of background therapies on my clients because, if they're a lawyer or an attorney, they don't want to be processing their background trauma while they're trying to win a court case in front of a judge. Because if they're, they need to stay mostly regulated. They need to have... to be able to process that, but not go in a deep dive. And so
I see the visual of this. Like you help them, and shopping bags have been a visual for me lately and carrying shopping bags. Mm-hmm. And I just see, and please stop me if I'm wrong, but that you also help them honor the other shopping bags, but not take on their clients or what they're doing shopping bags, like own their own stuff rather than trying to take on everything else. Why am I seeing that? I don't know why I'm seeing that. Because I would think that a lawyer or someone in a lot of different positions would take on other people's stuff that's not their own. I might be totally off.
That is part of with some of the clients, because lately I have been getting more clients that are just starting to realize that they're empathic and that they're taking on other people's stuff. So it's also educating those particular people on, no, you don't need to take that stuff on. You know, that's other people's stuff.
But you can't go to them like, that's collective stuff, because then you're going to start losing them. So you've got to keep that really...
And then, like, if it's somebody with, like, Lyme disease or lupus or stuff like that, with those particular clients, like, I mean, how it's a little bit different is that we're actually working on trying to support healthy responses from the body and giving the body specific responses or specific components that it needs to support the natural functions of the human body to heal and stuff like that. Whereas, like, the stressed out professionals, it's more what are ways for them to offload their system. So
SchaOn, do you have a maybe something that'll help, people who are listening to that to go, well, I should have called SchaOn 3 years ago, but I'm going to call him today. Do you have a story about someone who's worked with you directly that just totally lights you up, where you know that you really impacted that person's life in a massive way? Is there one person, obviously no names, but like one experience where you're just like, wow, I'm so glad that I do the work that I do?
So,
it's interesting in studio to watch SchaOn do this, because I know he impacts a lot of different people, and you're trying to find the story, but it's fun to watch.
There's a couple different stories, but it's like, okay, how can I tell this and stay within Minnesota law, Minnesota 146A, talk about it in a way that the body is actually healing itself, and we're just giving the body the tools it needs to actually do what it's supposed to do, and that's heal itself, while also still maintaining anonymity for whichever client I decide to talk about. Because
nothing SchaOn is about to say is going to treat, cure, diagnose any illness or disease. Okay, you're good. You can say whatever you want now.
Right. So one of my clients, actually several of them, and one of my clients actually gave me a plaque because they felt I saved their life. Because for whatever reason, they were going through some very emotional stuff, and they felt that by working with me, their system was better able to deal with the stress and not commit suicide. So
they made you a plaque.
Yes.
That would be like so special.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Then there's Mr. Brian with all his thought bubbles on all the different directions he wants to go. So what are...
I'm not going to let you I'm not going to let you off that easy. That was
That's what I thought.
Beautifully said, and I know there's so much more to that story, SchaOn, of course. But maybe is there something with a little more detail around a process that was gone through, whether it was 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, where it was, let's say someone came to you and they were 100 pounds overweight and they were miserable. And because they started working with you, not only did they lose the weight, but that was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And their work with you has sustained itself. They've actually learned how to be healthy. They've actually learned to take responsibility. Is there anything like that?
I mean, I would say for a good number of my clients, that's pretty typical, as long as they decide that they want to take some of those choices or make some of those choices and maintain things. I mean, I do also have clients as well that they're like, I just can't work on this, and they stop. One of the craziest clients that I've ever worked with, I mean, the client isn't crazy, but like one of the most interesting things that happened, I had a client come in, stage 4 liver disease, did some therapies for that helped to give new correcting information to the liver. A couple days later, they go in for blood work, and the doctor called him back a couple days later, said, hey, we must have mixed up your blood results. You need to come back in. Goes back in, gets new blood results. Come to find out, there was no traces of the liver disease anymore. So that was pretty cool. I would say that's not very typical, having it just one session. And I don't even know if it was from what I did or what the stuff that we did. Another client, this is very early on in my practice, and she's a good friend of mine. Type 2 diabetic, was working with her, I think, once a week or once every other week for like about 6 months. And in that time, lost about half of her body mass. And before that, she was insulin dependent. If I remember correctly, she was able to go off of insulin because her body was functioning better again. So.
No, that's fantastic. And you're really listening to the body.
So SchaOn, as we're wrapping up our time with you today, what would you say is your mission and purpose? Like, what lights you up? It's clear that you're very knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. What could you share with the audience that, like, why do you do what you do? So
I really enjoy helping people access their awesomeness naturally. I want people to feel young and vibrant, have less suffering.
Hashtag access your awesomeness naturally. Stamp that.
Yeah. And so it really bums me out when somebody is suffering. And it can be in so many different ways. And the best part is like the therapies that I do, like if you have like childhood trauma and you don't want to talk about your childhood trauma because it's kind of nasty.
Because it sucks.
And yeah, it sucks. I'm actually a really good therapist for that because I don't like to talk about it either. So I have therapies to where you don't have to talk about it and it starts to get released from the system or reprocessed so this way it's no longer hindering you. And you come to new realizations that just kind of like magically appear in your head. It's kind of cool and crazy and awesome.
Kind of. So you have a special offer for our AM 950 and Edge community. What is it?
Yes. So I haven't put it on the website yet, but if they go to synergyhealth.com/curiosity, what they can do is schedule the free initial mini consultation. That's a 45-minute appointment. So when I get back to the office after this interview, I'm going to be putting it up on the website. So when this airs on, I think it's May 22nd, it'll be up, ready to go then. But if you're watching the Facebook Live, it'll be ready by tomorrow.
I love it.
Awesome. Well,
paper, rock, scissors. Just kidding.
He's also going to be adding access your awesomeness naturally on his website because that's your tagline right there.
Oh, I can't have that on my website, actually.
Thanks, everyone.